All right, man. Episode 4, live uncut.
You know, it's episode 4. We talked about how our dress got a little bit last time. I'm in a T-shirt and a flat bill hat. I'll be in a wife beater by next week.
Well, and you know, we're recording on a Friday afternoon instead of a Saturday. And man, what a difference a week makes. I mean, we were bundled up a couple layers last week, and now we're in T-shirts and
yes,
you know,
70 degrees outside.
Yeah,
nice and hot.
Yeah, man. So you want to get started off with sponsors.
Yes.
Again, we got Comer Distributing. Thank you for the sponsorship. Chip and his team does a great job. Today we're featuring OMB Dunkel Dark Lager. So again, man, I'm trying to find lagers for you.
Never heard of it, but it was good.
I know. It's got a different sort of depth of flavor to it. You said a little bit of chocolate?
Yeah, it kind of has like a chocolatey taste to it.
But it's still kind of light though. Like it's full flavored,
still
but
feels
it's
light, but a little bit of chocolate.
It's not heavy like a porter or nothing like that. So.
I know Don Chapman was on me. He's like, I got to bring you a dark beer. I was like, man, I'm not a huge beer drinker. Like,
yeah. And for the two listeners out there, Don Chapman is our colleague from Anderson. Yep. He's a member of our freshman class, so got to know him and
super intelligent,
great representative from Anderson, and he's an architect, so he's got an eye for good-looking buildings and all those types of things. So man, you know, we left off last week. We were both going to the Oakland Baptist Church men's breakfast, where you know, we wanted to talk about the dangers of social media. We wanted to talk about your personal story. You know, you giving your personal testimony. And so, man, that was an action-packed morning for sure.
I've had lots of comments, people thanking. Matter of fact, whenever I come into town, came back last night, I had someone stop me and just tell me about how the story really touched them, and they sat down and talked to their teens. And
oh, wow.
And they thanked
Were they
us
there?
for fighting, evidently.
Okay.
Yes. Because,
you know, Oakland records it. And so they can go get it off our website, YouTube. So
I didn't know that.
If you do get feedback, ask them. I'm always just curious about how they.
I've been going so much that I was so brain dead by the time I got in last night. I basically came in, seen my wife and son for about 30 minutes for the first time in a couple of weeks, it feels like.
Yeah.
And then I decided I would try to go out to the local GOP party to kind of support.
The monthly meeting.
Was doing a Q&A. My goal was to kind of like see how it goes.
Just support them. And
then I got roped into.
And then give them the House perspective, because you can't trust them senators, you know. That obviously tongue-in-cheek, folks. But yeah, so, I mean, that Sunday, I tell you, the timing was impeccable, and we didn't even know it. We went over there to talk to the church, and we invited folks from the public out to discuss what we were doing in the House, along with your personal testimony. We've got a few bills regarding social media, especially dealing with minors. We also have that adult appropriate or adult websites getting a robust age verification in there.
Yep.
Default to safe on devices. So we've got
blocking
several
algorithms for children under the age of 18.
So, you know, we were talking about our efforts down in the House to the folks at Oakland Baptist Church, and lo and behold, Judiciary's picking it up, you know, and on Tuesday. So great timing. We gave them a good preview because it was coming right behind, unbeknownst, you know.
Yeah. And it's funny, all the special interests. Like I said before, we have a left-wing lobby of the digital lobby and a right-wing privacy lobby. And it's funny how all these special interests have already riled people up, telling us to vote against 4,300 because they're going to lose some personal liberty or something.
The social media bill?
Yeah.
House Bill 4700. Yeah.
47 or 43? Yeah. I thought it was 43.
Yeah, 47.
Okay.
Yep. So before we get into all of that happened in the judiciary, that Sunday, man, you know, sort of the end of my, you know, we did the State House thing Tuesday through Thursday. We had the podcast here Friday. I had an action-packed deal on Saturday, and then we had the stuff on Sunday at the church, and you know, I was able to put my feet up after that. But you, on the other hand,
I left the church, went home, slammed some clothes into a carry-on because evidently Dr. Phil does not cover
baggage fees.
So I drove straight to the airport. I had to rush. I thought I was going to miss my plane. Barely got there in time, got on the plane, flew into Dallas, and as soon as I landed, a car picked me up, drove me straight to the studio.
So y'all were doing a little bit of filming on Sunday evening?
Yeah.
Wow.
So as soon as I sat down, they gave me a sandwich and about 10 minutes to eat. And then we recorded an interview process, which was about 2 hours. And then went back to the hotel. And, of course, the hotel lounge had closed by then because it was after 10, so I couldn't even get food there. Went to sleep, woke up in the morning, it was rainy and cold in Dallas.
Man.
And
similar to here.
Yeah. So that Monday I woke up, had the phone conversation with the attorneys because I filed a lawsuit against Meta on Monday. That was dropped.
That's right.
And did B-reel film outside in the rain. Came back, dealt with a lot of the phone calls and interviews on the lawsuit. Fox News, CNN, Pluribus, I mean, quite a few media channels calling.
Yeah.
And then went back on
just on the news of the lawsuit. Yep.
And then Tuesday morning, I woke up, I had to be at the studio at 7:30. Got locked into a room about the size of this, and with no internet connection, no phone connection, and had to wait there forever before we filmed the show. Left the show and went straight back to the airport. Flew back to Charlotte, got off the plane around 10 o'clock.
Now, this is your Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because then
you're already back in session.
You're landing and texting me like, hey, you know, where y'all at? What am I missing type deal? And I said, man, I think we had like a winter reception and some other things.
And then I drove straight down to Columbia, got in about a little bit after midnight, had to wake up in the morning and go to committee.
Get back at it, man. That's right. So yeah, on Tuesday, you know, we had several meetings going on. We went to the House floor at noon. Really just, I think we were dealing with some local issues. I think we dealt with a lot of that Tuesday and Wednesday, but, you know, the Judiciary Committee, Chairman Weston Newton, down out of Beaufort, Hilton Head side of town of the state. Man, he jammed the schedule up.
Yeah,
I think it was 9. I know. I told him afterwards, I said, I like your style, man. You get in, you work hard, you educate the members on what y'all are talking about. If they've got any issues, let's bring it up. Boom.
And that was the Constitutional Law Subcommittee, which I did not attend.
Yep.
But, you know, on the full judiciary, I know, you know, we come in and we've got a massive binder and book and to go through all of these laws. What I am happy about, last year, whenever we came in with Gavin's law, there was a few other legislators that had issues where, you know, they had a constituent take their life over being scammed, like these romance scams. But nothing to do with the sextortion. But none of those bills were really coming forward. Now that we got Gavin's law passed, it has become a priority of South Carolina, and I'm happy to see that it is a priority, not only in South Carolina, but in the U.S. Senate, which is having a hearing next week.
Wait a minute. You mean D.C. politicians actually got to work now? Because we were just talking about it last episode that, you know, in the last decade.
Nothing's going to happen. Mark my words. They'll sit there. They'll listen to some more whistleblowers.
Yeah.
They're getting funded from the left and from the right, and they're going to try to posture, and yet nothing's going to get done. You know, you've got a special interest group that's trying to represent all these survivors wanting to write in testimony.
Right.
So I contacted Lindsey Graham's office wanting to see if I can get in there to testify on
that's
my
right.
story.
That's right.
I haven't, I've been told that, you know, he's not able to really choose who gets to testify, and they're bringing in all the big wigs from the digital companies next week.
Right.
So I'm probably not even going to have my testimony.
I wonder if that's, you know, I wonder how that's going to look. You know, is that going to be our generations, when big tobacco went
That's
up there?
Exactly what it is. It's big tobacco all over again.
Just towing the line.
It's so funny being in Dallas. We dropped that lawsuit on
Not
Monday.
being truthful about the threats.
Right.
That their business.
They're fully aware. But dropping that lawsuit and then having the traffic show come out on Wednesday night, is Wednesday or Thursday night that it aired live.
On Nat Geo, right?
On Nat Geo. Yep. Trafficked episode, or season 4, episode 2. I started getting those phone calls as well. But the biggest problem is Meta, and my lawsuit is specific against Meta on this one. But, they intentionally have designed addictive algorithms that target children, concealed the research on human effects, and they've misled the public about the correlation between their products and the mental health crisis that we currently face. And, all of this has been validated over and over again through our Surgeon General, 42 attorney generals that have sued Meta, my lawsuit.
Hey,
and you think about all the school districts.
And you know what? Another important support in this whole thing, the data,
right?
The kids.
Yeah. Well, oh no, these privacy groups and the idiots that are posting videos like just vote against this bill because they feel like this infringing upon their rights. They seriously lack knowledge, and they are parroting a special interest message to scare people, and that's the reason nothing happens. They say it's bipartisan. But both sides fight, and nothing gets done. Meanwhile, our children are dying daily. 2 within the past 48 hours have taken their life.
Yeah, I shared that. Man, that was it a 14-year-old girl? Yeah. And that one hit home for me. Man, my daughter is 14.
And that was utilizing AI.
Well, at least for another day.
Wasn't even, the girl didn't send a nude picture.
Yeah.
That was
no,
AI
it was an app.
Right. That's that Nudify app.
Man.
That is the problem. And then you have groups like Pornhub. Now you have... Within the past week also, my lawsuit dropped on Monday. Pornhub announced changes.
Oh, yeah?
On verification and taking down some of these, the sex traffic and criminals online. Well, Meta also announced changes on Thursday that they are going to start or stop foreign adults from contacting children online. Well, no shit, you should have been doing that. Like, that should have never been a question.
Hey, speaking of... I even text myself this article. Did you hear about the AI risque photos of Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
What?
I got...
It's going to take someone with her financial resources to go after these dirtbags.
Well, so one of the people that I've been working on this with is an actress named Udos out of California. She's part of that hack. And a lot of these scams that are set up, she sent me that the other night. And, I mean, I get things daily, but she's working with people worldwide. With this foundation. And it's scary to see all the things that are happening out there. But, yeah, going after, I mean, if you want to pick a fight, don't pick a fight with a Swiftie.
Man, I tell you. Yeah. Just...
But if she could use her platform to warn young girls and boys about this, I mean, imagine how much could get out there.
Right. I mean, and with her and Travis Kelce, both megastars in their own,
Then you got some people that would never listen to it because Kelce was on an ad promoting the jab.
Oh, yeah. He has been out there a little bit.
But it's just amazing how people want to politicize everything. I mean, who doesn't want to protect children?
Yeah.
Bottom line, we all have children. We all want to protect them. Some people just say it's fully on the parents, which in that case, I'd say, okay, so we should just make everything legal for children.
I stress that to parents just because of my own experience, and I know you've had it too with Meta and some other. I stress it on Sunday.
Yeah.
Ultimately, don't think you have help, right? So if parents go in with that mindset that, hey, don't rely on Facebook or parental controls or this, assumption that it's safe.
Right.
Right? You know what I mean?
So I guess I get angry about, and it's not like your comments. It's the comments by the people that say, ultimately, this is solely on parenting. And if you're having the conversation with with your children, you don't have this issue. And that's just pure ignorance.
And again, this is, we got to balance public health.
Well, I mean, they're kids. They're going to make good and bad decisions.
I'm just saying, I understand the argument of civil rights, privacy, and all those things because that's important.
Right.
But so is the health of our children, and so.
What's funny, it almost sounds like the liberals arguing on how we can't ask for an ID to vote now. I mean, it's just it's such hypocrisy.
It's amazing the company we keep depending on.
Right, and you go into a store to buy beer, they ask for your ID. If you don't have the ID and can't prove your age, therefore you can't access it.
Right.
But for some reason, God forbid, we ask this online. And these companies have the ability to protect that data and get rid of that data, but just to prove to begin with, they have that ability to verify. That's what every single one of them little blue checks are online. Yeah.
Well, the voter ID, argument from the left is bogus. We all know it. When, I said this prior to this show, when I stay at a Marriott Courtyard, guess what they ask me for?
An ID.
And a credit card.
Yep.
And so are you saying that Marriott hotels are racist? Are you saying that Publix grocery stores, when that kid asks me for my ID when I'm buying a 6-pack of beer, is that kid racist or is it Publix?
That's
it's just ridiculous.
That's the left's argument.
That's what folks are so sick and tired of.
But now the right's argument is that these stores just want to get all of your data so that way the New World Order can take you over and make you a lizard person. I'm not understanding this crap.
It's an election year.
Yeah.
So the fervor is dialed up every 4 years.
It's so frustrating.
It is. So let's just recap a couple of bills that came out of judiciary. Travis Moore had House Bill 3424, and there's a lot of other folks that are going to jump on that bill. That's common sense. I think you and I both talked to him in the offseason about that. And that is the adult sites age verification.
Yeah.
So,
that's a no-brainer.
Yep.
If you're in Rock Hill right now and you try to go on Pornhub, it's going to block you because North Carolina's already done this.
Yes, correct.
And for some reason, once again, South Carolina is lagging behind because, oh, God, that's going to violate my constitutional right. The government wants to know what I'm getting off to, and they don't have that right. How about we just protect children from seeing pornography, which is part of the Republican platform?
Yeah. Well, I try to explain it in the simplest terms. Hey, when I was growing up, you would go to a 7-Eleven, and as a teenager, I would see magazines behind the register. Guess what they had?
A black bar.
A black, blackout plastic. And so you could not see any risque women on the front cover. Well, that's what this is, but it's online.
Right.
It's the online version.
You have to show that you're 18
Folks,
in order to see it.
Yeah. It's a filter. It's not totally keeping you from your constitutional right. I don't know if there's a constitutional right to pornography. But I guess, that could be described as protection under the First Amendment, freedom of expression.
It's so frustrating. But it just makes no sense. I mean, to act as if they're violent. I don't understand why we think that we need to treat digital separate than personal. And meanwhile, and granted, I'm happy that we have an AI and cybersecurity committee.
Yeah.
The big flashy thing right now is for all these states and federal government to say, "Oh, we've got this. We're gonna be proactive on AI." How about we fix the last 30-year of a crap show that we have had on protecting kids online before we even start considering what we can do on AI? There's certain small things that we can do.
Yeah.
But we can't be too proactive on AI. It's just going to build right around it. So we have to be quick and nimble on our response, but we're not going to be able to think of every issue and jump out in front of it.
Well, and I think that we're starting off this year strong out of the gates.
Yeah.
With this,
and
work.
If data is going to be the new currency, guess what? These lobbies are only going to get stronger, left and right, and keeping things from being done. Meanwhile, 2 children within the past 48 hours have taken their life over social media.
Well, speaking of social media, Chairman Weston Newton has House Bill 4700, and that's the social media bill. There's a couple of components to that. That's the curfew, daily usage, 3 hours or less. I can't remember exactly. Was it 3 hours?
I don't know.
But it also has some protections for minors. Parents have full administrative rights to the minor's account, no private messaging, things of that nature.
But so that's going to be impossible as Meta is rolling out end-to-end encryption.
Right. Well, we've talked about this in the past. It's as fast as we can make a rule.
They're changing. And this is Cyber Week, I think is what they call it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to hear a few more things roll out before next week, maybe even before this podcast airs, on some changes that social media companies are doing to, in my opinion, I mean, some of the changes are good, but it still needs to step it up a little bit.
Yeah. So wanted to highlight two more that piqued my interest. House Bill 4231. That author is Representative Mark Smith. This is the bill that allows micro distilleries Sunday liquor sales. So I'm trying to think. We have a distillery here.
Yeah, I'm not big on that. I mean,
in Rock Hill. So I didn't even realize that.
I think that
Sleeping Giant could not sell their rum on Sundays.
I can't sell any alcohol on Sundays unless you're in a restaurant.
Yeah, I didn't.
But at the same time, I feel like that's a bunch of Yankees moving down here, and they're just mad because they can't buy liquor on Sunday where they used to.
They're accustomed to.
I get over it. Like I'm fine with, and the reason those blue laws were put into place is because you had plenty of people, and the same reason Prohibition came out, where you had plenty of people that became severe alcoholics from moonshine. And started drinking and beating their wives and all these social issues. And whenever they implemented the blue laws, a lot of those things slowed down.
I'm curious, how many micro distilleries do you think we have in South Carolina? I guess Firefly down there in his part of the state is probably a bigger one. We have Sleeping Giant up here, but I mean,
we've got the moonshine places like Palmetto Moonshine. I mean, I've got a Palmetto's.
Oh, that's right.
State bourbon.
Yep.
Before, I think there's quite a few out towards Greenville, but it's definitely not our niche.
So that was one, and then also House Bill 4364, and this was authored by again Chairman Weston Newton, and this was the alcohol curbside pickup delivery bill that had a lot of folks just asking questions, trying to get their mind around. What are the implications of being able to pick up alcohol curbside or getting it delivered or, having a third-party delivery come and pick up alcohol and then deliver it to someone at their home. So there's pros and cons to it.
Like Beer Uber.
Yep. And we had or DoorDash or things of that nature.
Would that be called Boober?
Well, and, so there were some good points brought up. Representative Spencer Wetmore out of Folly Beach asked, hey, when I make an order at Piggly Wiggly or Publix and I order all this food and a 6-pack of beer and 2 bottles of wine is included in my $200, $300 grocery order. Right now, the alcohol cannot be brought out to the curb. And, I identify with that. As far as being a parent, having young kids, it's convenient to be able to get all your groceries just delivered to the assigned space.
But now businesses would have to ensure that everyone is above the age of 18.
That's right. And making sure they're not drunk.
Right.
And so again, it's just all of what doors are we opening? It's sort of that unintended consequences of legislation.
I don't like it as much from that standpoint. I like it on the fact that we, let's say we've got 5 guys over at the house watching
Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
It's coming up.
Carolina.
Yep.
Or something like that. And we're sitting there and, run out of beer. What's that old song? BEERUN, beer run. I mean, and this is what causes a lot of wrecks is because people think, oh, I'm okay. I'm going to run to the store, and I'll grab us another 12-pack, and I'll come back.
Yeah, right. Buzz driving or.
Yeah, and this will allow to have that delivered. Now, I do understand the implications, but I think the insurance companies will work that out, and people will pay the difference because of the liability on these companies.
And so a couple good questions got brought up by members of the committee about the unintended consequences of, are we opening our businesses up to liability?
If they choose not to do so, then they don't have that liability.
Well, if they do so, right, to compete in the market, we're dealing with liquor liability premiums now that are going through the roof. Yeah. And I guarantee you back in 2017, when those members were voting that if you wanted to sell liquor, you had to have this insurance policy, they never intended the predicament that we're in now with skyrocketing premiums if you want to sell liquor for bars, restaurants, and those types of things.
And if a driver comes into a gas station or a grocery store to pick up alcohol, they might check the ID, but ultimately it's on that driver for the company on confirming that the person hasn't consumed too much. And then, there's a difference between being drunk in public and drunk at home. So if you show up and somebody's stumbling a little bit and you're handing them beer, does that make you liable?
Yeah, right.
I can understand all those arguments.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, me too.
I can honestly say I could care which way that bill goes.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure we're going to get this debate as that comes out of committee. So,
it'll be a fun one.
Yeah, man.
I feel like because I have missed the previous 2 Tuesdays, which is where you get most of your committee meeting.
Yeah, right.
I felt like I've missed so much. Luckily, I know a little bit more about the cyber bills.
Yep.
That are coming up, but still, it's different.
That's right. All right. Well, man, that was just Tuesday, so we're gonna take a slight break here and come and talk about our Wednesday. All right. We didn't get to. We didn't cover. We're both members of the military caucus. And want to cover that. That was one of the meetings we had on Tuesday morning, and there's a lot of stuff going on for our veterans and active military that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention.
I don't understand why a lot of these things weren't in place to begin with. This is ridiculous.
Right.
Too.
Well, I do think South Carolina is a veteran-friendly state, not only active but retirees. Remember we passed that bill last year about veteran retirements not being taxed. So we want those folks here. But, yeah, so to highlight House Bill 3115, Brandon Cox has a member of the Porch Caucus as well. He wants to exempt some VA benefits. There's also Ray Felder has House Bill 3116. That wants to exempt some benefits for disabled veterans. And there's a couple regarding military leave, increasing it from 15 to 30 and, just giving them some additional time off. So just wanted to note that as well.
I think our bigger problem is trying to get people in the military.
Well, I saw a good article about that, and they talked about the recruiting efforts. And, with some of the social programming that's being incorporated by the federal government right now, they said that's probably a big driver on
why it's lowering.
Yep.
Not just that. I mean, you go back, what was it? We got the SNAP benefits from DHEC, or we got the Medicare benefits from DHEC, and we start looking, and I think it was, $78 million spent in York County. Which was ridiculous.
Yeah, mind-blowing.
Yeah. So we do those numbers, and it's like, okay, where does this money come from? Well, it all comes from the federal government, but we're one of the least impoverished counties. And then I start thinking, well, maybe this includes all the free and reduced lunch.
Yep.
No, it does not. That comes from the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense funds the free and reduced lunch, and they started this so they could beef up the kids, and you wouldn't have these malnourished kids coming out trying to join the military. Now our problem is we're too fat.
Yeah.
Or we're not in shape.
Yeah.
Or we don't have the drive. And we've got testosterone levels how far low? I mean, it's getting rough.
Well, when you have 18 grape Shastas, Pop-Tarts, and Funyuns, you're going to have a diabetes problem, So, but speaking of...
We're all pre-diabetic.
Well, let's move to Wednesday, and we had our Ways and Means passed out of their committee. It's House Bill 4710, and did you catch this one? Did you see this one?
No. You sit in your office and you're sitting there watching them while you're working.
Yeah,
I'm still trying to catch up on what happened on Tuesday and bouncing around.
Right. So House Bill 4710 is, depending on the circumstances, reducing unemployment from 20 weeks to 12 here in the state of South Carolina.
Ooh.
Due to the lack of businesses being able to find people.
I disagree with that.
Well,
and the reason being, businesses pay into it.
That's why. That's why I said.
Pay into it.
Well, it's dependent upon the circumstances. So,
yeah,
I think the intent's there. I agree with it. Man, I'm telling you, I have guys who go out and,
Have you ever been on unemployment in South Carolina?
Never.
It is horrible.
Now, I have been unemployed,
it's like $300
but I never.
a week.
Yep.
$200 to $300 a week. Like, you can't live off of that.
Right.
No one's living off of the unemployment.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But what does it say to the guy who's out there working?
Well, what does it say?
40, 50, 60 hours a week, and there's someone on the couch, again, eating Funyuns,
I agree
drinking his grape Shasta, and getting a check.
And they're
not actively.
They're doing it through
pursuing
their SNAP benefits,
right,
to which they can now buy all these corporate name brands.
Yep. So I think what the state of
federal government.
I think the state of South Carolina is saying, hey, you know what? We understand you're gaming the federal system. We're not going to supplement it anymore, or we will, but we're only going to do it for 12 weeks and not 20.
But they don't supplement it.
But again, it's in
that's what you're
certain
missing.
Circumstances.
The employee pays unemployment along with the company.
The employer.
The employer and the employee.
Right.
You're paying into that each week.
I would argue the employer is putting more into that than the employee.
I agree, but that's part of our.
But that's just
system.
me from my business owner ball cap.
Yeah. Oh, I face the same problem. And it's like you have one person claim unemployment, and all of a sudden your rates are going up.
You're right.
Right. And I do understand that. However, it's one of the few taxes that people are getting back what they paid in for the most part, or what was paid in on right, their behalf at that time, as opposed to our food stamps.
I think if the system worked,
and all this other stuff.
If the system worked as designed, I would agree with you. But I think there's a lot of leakage.
I think there's a lot more
in
leakage
the
on
systems.
A lot more things.
So,
yeah.
So yeah, Ways and Means did do that. We'll get to have our say when it gets to the floor.
We'll see.
And I'm interested to get all sides of that.
This is why I love this, is because this is something that I was even unaware of until we sat down.
Yeah.
I'm giving my opinion right now. My opinion may change by then.
Actually,
because I'm getting more statistics.
Yep, more information.
And so that's the purpose of being as transparent as possible.
Yeah.
And just by this podcast, as with last week, I had plenty of phone calls over our podcast. We will see if we get phone calls from saying, hey, let me educate you on this.
Right.
Let me explain how this works. And to inform us a little bit more so we do understand, because you can't be an expert in everything. I know,
no.
Heath, you got a big brain. You keep up with everything.
No.
I have to focus on what I am focused on, and people don't understand. I want to point this out while we're on it. People don't understand how much it takes to get legislation moving. We had 2,000 bills introduced in a session, and we ratified 80 to 100 out of 2,000.
Yes.
So people want you to pick up these issues where you've already got 5 or 6 issues that you're fighting fully for. And then things happen like what happened with me in the subcommittee on Wednesday, which I'll get into, to where your views change. And you're like, you know what? This is wrong. I need to fight for this too.
Yeah, right.
And you take that on. But it's not these big issues that is going to cause an issue. This is something so simple, and it's like, why doesn't everybody agree with this?
Yeah, right. Well, and, a lot of times what's going on nationally or internationally that folks are more knowledgeable about because it's on Fox News or CNN or, the legacy media channels, that a lot of that stuff is not of issue in the state of South Carolina. Right. In a sense that we're doing the boring stuff that no one's paying. You know what I mean? Like, it's not grabbing headlines.
We're truly governing.
Yeah, right.
That's the difference.
Yeah, and it's, sometimes when you try to champion what you're doing, people are like, wait a minute, how are we helping Texas protect their southern border, I saw on Twitter yesterday several members just rushing out to compel our governor to join and protect our southern border.
I don't necessarily disagree, but I'm not going to make it my talking point.
I 100% agree that nationally we need to protect the southern border. We need to support Texas's efforts, but I thought it was hysterical that they're rushing out.
I think this could be our next civil war, the beginning of it.
It's just this rush to get out, and I have proposed a bill that compels South Carolina to send National Guard support, and I'm like, seriously? Like, you had time to do that?
It is so funny how so many people propose bills, and whenever they are just kind of there are many legislators out there that might, submit 100 bills a year. None of them get heard. Maybe one or two of them get heard.
Yep.
But it makes it very easy for them to campaign. You go to a local party meeting, and they say, we only want...
Hey, why aren't you backing paper ballots, or why aren't you backing full audits of And I'm like, wait a minute, what? I don't even know about that bill.
Yeah, that's not the big push because we're focused on
and not
things.
Saying it's not important,
right?
But I'm focused on. I have that medical transparency bill. I think I'm going to get a hearing here in like 2 weeks.
Something that can actually make a difference.
And
quickly.
So I am doing all the research I can now, and I'm talking to members of first my subcommittee, and then the full committee to educate them just so everyone's comfortable going in. And I want them to know the bill. I want them to know how I reached.
You mean you don't want to read the bill as people are asking you questions?
No, I do not want any surprises. I want everyone to know. And I want the hospital association. I want the medical association. I want insurance companies. Yeah. I want them all to know what's coming because I don't want to write a bill that may negatively impact or harm a business, and I didn't intend for that. You know what I mean?
Every law was written with good intentions.
Right. And how
many bad laws do we have?
So I'm working on a lot of things to improve health care here in South Carolina. So, the southern border thing.
That's your focus. And mine is on tech.
Right. While it's important, I didn't have time to write a bill on it and then post it to Twitter.
Well, that was the example. I went to the meeting last night. And whenever it was talking about
the York County GOP?
York County GOP, which I have avoided over the past year.
Well, you did censure him.
Yeah. Well, good for the goose, good for the gander. So I decided I would show up, and it's a question and answer thing. But there were things that were thrown out as far as closed primaries being one, or the paper ballots. And there's some good information there. I'm not saying that it's not a noble cause by any means. The problem is I don't think people truly understand, and whenever you're trying to explain, and I just told you my schedule. Like, I've barely been able to see my kids.
Yeah, right.
And trying to learn and we got judicial races, 45 candidates or how many ever it is.
Yes.
So as we're going through all this, and then the argument becomes is all I hear is a bunch of excuses or double talk. And it's,
No.
Do you think you want to talk to people, especially ones that aren't even in your own district? Do you think you want to have a conversation with them at that point? And it's like, why am I wasting my time with this?
Well, I think
whenever people just want to intentionally try and put you down instead of
listening. When you speak, you should first be truthful, right?
Agreed.
And you want to speak to the facts.
Correct.
Not the knee-jerk reaction emotion of things. And a lot of times when folks ask me about certain bills, if I don't know about it, I tell them, I don't know anything about that bill. Let me go and check it, do some research, and I'll get back to you. And that does not satisfy some folks.
Well, I don't even tell them that. I tell them I don't have time to champion this. Like, I already know. I can sit there and be a politician and tell you, let me look at it. And let me go throw my name on a bill that I know is not going to move.
Yeah.
But is there true intent on getting something moved?
Hey, you know my rule. Remember,
you don't co-sign on anything.
I do not co-sponsor a single thing because, that's exactly right. I'm like, hey, I cannot. The legislator job is hard enough. I don't want to have to track 100 bills.
I'm about to get to that point where I'm not going to endorse anyone.
When things come out
and I'm not going to co-sponsor anyone. I'm not going to commit to any early judges.
Yep.
I mean, I will vote on decision day. That's it.
When things get a hearing in a subcommittee, it's got life.
Yeah.
It's got a heartbeat. That's when I start paying attention. I've gotten questions before like, hey, so-and-so pre-filed a bill. Why aren't you co-sponsoring it? You're against, dogs being able to get Purina canned dog food? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about.
Why aren't you co-sponsoring that?
Yeah. And for some reason, people think that if you didn't co-sponsor, that means you're against it.
Right.
Nope. No.
You might not even know about it.
That's right.
You're reading through the headline, but it's like, okay, this doesn't pertain to me. This doesn't pertain to me. And whenever you look at a bill as you're scrolling through and you see 15 names on it, I typically am not wasting my time to go through it at that point because they've got enough sponsors. Look at 4,700 as you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
This is my passion. I don't think I'm co-signed on that. I don't think I'm co-signed on Travis Moore's bill.
Hey, full disclosure.
These are things that we were pushing last year. 4,700.
I start talking to the Attorney General's office. I start talking to people. I start talking to Meta because they're already in your office last year because of your sextortion bill. That's how I even got in touch with Meta, right?
Yeah.
And I started looking at the social media stuff last January.
Yeah, you were pushing. You were like, I want to ban social media for anyone under the age of 18.
16.
Then 18 at first, and then it was 16.
16 to 18 is parental has full admin.
Yeah.
Yep. I do not want kids under the age of 16. That's just me personally.
Right. And I didn't, truthfully, I didn't necessarily agree with you totally at first on that.
Right.
Until I started seeing some of these Attorney General
It was funny,
reports.
Some of the looks I got from folks when I first said it. And they were like,
but you were the first one to say it in the state of South Carolina.
But so I was working on a bill that looks like 4,700 last year. And I happened to run into Chairman Newton at a function. And he said, hey, I'm going to pre-file a social media bill. And he's like, man, I just was told, I've already pre-filed it. I was just told, and this is months ago, that you've been working on this issue. And I said, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whose name.
No pride of authorship here, man.
Me and Travis Moore were both are working on the default children's safety bill. And I was like, I don't care whose name's on it.
Exactly. You get it through. And Chairman Newton has got a lot more
power.
Time. Well, I was going to say time in the House. Yeah. He is a chairman. So,
and he's one of the best legal minds across the state.
Yes. So, you look at Representative Sessions, Representative Newton. Yeah. Newton, let's go.
I think it'll be good. But all of that going back and forth with trying to attack legislators, and truth be told, if I'm sitting in a meeting and my focus is on cyber and wanting to protect our kids, and all I hear is politicians talking about whatever the talking points of the day are, I get angry. And I used to be the one that would speak up. So I can't hold it against them because they got the same personality as I do.
Yeah.
But all I'm doing is, I'm just asking for understanding that there's not but so much bandwidth, and there's plenty of politicians that will make you think that they can handle it all and will do anything and everything.
Right.
But
a mile wide, an inch deep.
They're just blowing air up your skirt.
Yeah.
They're not genuine about their intent.
Well, you want to we also had regs subcommittees.
Yes.
On Wednesday.
I lost my cool on that one.
And this is something that this is a secondary committee for both of us. You're on Judiciary, I'm on 3M, but then each rep gets assigned a secondary committee. And regs, basically, we go through South Carolina statutes and regs, and man, if they're obsolete, get them out of here.
Well, that was our intent of wanting to get on there.
Yeah. And it goes so well with our personalities, you know? And so you were on the Agricultural and Natural Resources Subcommittee
Yes.
while I was on the Business, Commerce, and Administrative Subcommittee. And, I'll be up front. I was a little jealous, because it looked like you had the fun subcommittee. and I was dealing with, outdated banking regulations from the 1930s.
Yeah, you don't want me on that.
But let's get to mine first.
Okay.
We heard from Kathy Beckham. She heads up the State Board of Financial Institutions. And really, man, we went through a laundry list. I think there was about 9 or 10 obsolete banking regulations that were on the books that we went ahead and took care of. Not going to bore you with all the details, but, again, these were like Great Depression era type regs. Now the fireworks happened over on your subcommittee, which was the agricultural and natural resources. And why don't you take the two listeners through what happened there?
I got fired up. For one, I have a problem with thinking that you have to ask the government, can you fish? Can you hunt on property that you own? I already don't like that, but I understand that these are things that are in place. But if there's a chance to remove a regulation that I think is outdated, I want to. Now, the first person to speak was, I forget the exact title. It's like deer biologist. And, we've been having trouble.
Was this a DNR person? You think?
Yeah, I think it was DNR.
Okay.
He's the specialist with it. And we had a problem with TGK. TGK has 220 fawns being born every year. And
say that number again.
220 fawns being born each year. This
Fawn,
was through
baby deer.
Through 4 studies now. 220. But yet DNR only wanted to issue 80 permits. Well, I called on behalf whenever the mayor and a couple of the council members called and said, hey, Guffey, can you see if you can use your tactic to kind of get us some more permits? So I called.
And what tactic is that?
I'm a little bit more blunt. But, called to get it, but I was told that there's no way that you go above 160 permits, right? And they were wanting 220. Eliminate the number of deer that are being born, and they're going to bring in a specialty group that is certified through the state to essentially snipe them. And there's multiple options that were brought up, such as what they call it, like birth control for them. Well,
really?
Yeah. So like shooting them with a dart gun, it kind of sterilizes them. Right? But these deer, if you've seen them, first of all, there's been 6 pets trampled to death by deer in TGK.
Wow.
If a deer kills my dog, I'm slitting that deer's throat. Like, I'm not
worried about the regulation.
I'll never put an animal's life above a human's to begin with.
Right.
But I'm always going to put my animal's life above any other animal's
my
life.
Domestic.
Right. But, it's just ridiculous that we have these problems. But once again, you have plenty of Yankees that have moved to TGK, and they love the deer, and there's so many of them that they're causing major problems. They're eating up every plant. Anyway, so I had that conversation, and then as we go in, the first thing is talking about the issuance of deer depredation permits. And as he's talking, he's saying that these farmers are getting their crops ate, and, they want to increase the number of decrease the amount of time a farmer has to wait for a permit from 2 weeks to 1 week to be able to kill these deer. I was like, wait just a minute. Like, if a deer is eating my crop,
yep,
I'm going to kill it.
Yes.
I'm not asking for permission.
Forgiveness.
But the DNR, the deer belongs to the state of South Carolina, approach, which is government at its best, in my opinion. And then I hear the number that $115 million of loss to farmers last year. $115 million.
Just in crop damage.
Yeah.
From not just deer, but feral hogs, whatever.
And I think I made the comment that I would be like Rambo out there. I'd be lighting them up.
Yeah.
Well, then
100%.
There is no way you're going to destroy my property and think that I'm not going to put a bullet in you.
Yeah.
Like, this is ridiculous.
The deer ran into my bullet, sir.
Yeah. And you should be grateful if I send you a letter telling you that I killed the deer. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So as I'm going through that, and we got into a bit of an argument, I could tell Chairman Bradley and Chairman Burns were not happy with my point of questioning, but, the comment came back to me, and I brought up the Constitution. I have the right to protect my property.
Yeah.
Why is the state of South Carolina telling me I'm not? And if you're saying the deer belong to the state of South Carolina, you owe me $115 million for crop damage. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I find out that I asked, because I don't know. It's like, hey, what's the process of us repealing this completely?
Yeah.
And everybody wanted to come up and talk to me afterwards. And then as I'm walking, I have members come up. Hey, I heard you blew up in this committee. And I'm like, do you not think this is wrong? Like, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, no, when you told me about it later that afternoon, I said, nah.
Yeah.
Nah.
It was amazing how many members come up and was like, calm it down, Guffey. And this just infuriates me. But, and then there was another line in one of the other issues that we were reading through in our packet, and it said this will increase the revenue for the state of South Carolina by increasing the number of permits, and that infuriates me. Because I grew up
this whole idea that government being
I got mad whenever we started charging at Ebenezer Park to get in, because that was one of the few places if I wanted to go fish, I could.
Yeah,
and
right.
for me to have to go and ask and have to pay the government to get a permit to go do so, I just find it ridiculous. If we got
totally
a problem
agree
with something getting wiped out, I understand controlling it. But we've got overpopulation of deer. We've got armadillos, which I've never seen in the Carolinas until the past 5 years or so. Hell, now we got scorpions coming in that are a lot more popular.
Armadillo have been here for a while.
But I've never seen them.
Well, that's because you don't live in Hilton Head.
Well, you're raised in the low country, a little bit different.
About south of 95, you'll see them all over the road. But
speaking of north of 85, they talk different. It's that mountain slang. Why not?
Yeah, that's right. Let's see. Another thing that happened Wednesday was the governor's stay of the state. That was a big deal. He came to visit us in the House chamber.
I didn't print that out, but I was not happy with some of the comments there.
I didn't either.
Big government.
I think. Well, one of the ones I thought that you and I both were like, man, really? And it wasn't really anything that he was advocating. It was more of just the statistic, right, on mental health.
Oh.
Holy smokes.
We need to – we're dead last. And that's obvious. 28 bad. And as
not,
the people –
not next to last, not 46th, dead last.
And as the people were bashing the representatives that were talking last night, the thing I'm sitting there thinking is we've got 28 beds – for teens that are struggling with mental health in the state of South Carolina.
In the entire state.
And this is one of my passions. And you're sitting here complaining to me about whether this election machine was certified or not. Like, we have other people that might take that on a little bit more. I'm trying to take on some more important issues that I fight for. Yeah. And I'm not going to lie to you and act like I know everything.
Yep. But he did, some of the highlights there was more money for student resource officers in our schools. He wants that to be 100%, which I think we agree with.
I don't have the notes from.
I think he doubled.
Grinding my teeth.
He doubled the budget for mental health counselors in schools. So again, we're still
mental health counselors or psychiatrists and psychologists, because I think school counselors are one of the problems that we have with mental health.
It's for mental health counselors in schools.
Okay.
Yep. He talked about expediting our tax cuts that were,
I can agree with that.
Yeah. So I think the income tax was 7%. We've stepped it down now to 6%. He wants to just expedite that. As I think the way the legislature planned those tax cuts where they step down every year. So with the growth of South Carolina,
as long as we have things in place such as mental health.
Right. Well, there's backstops for tax cuts too. So if the economy just all of a sudden takes a dip, the tax cuts stop until certain economic watersheds are met. And then,
so if Biden gets reelected, then we know
cuts
will stop.
And then, he also talked about bolstering the rainy day fund, which, what did he say that was like over $1 billion now in a rainy day fund? But
I don't like that either. There shouldn't be a rainy day fund. That's taxpayers' money sitting there.
Man, I know. And I remember getting this question when we were campaigning, and I said, man, if there's overages you need to cut the check back to the people.
Well,
it's their money.
That becomes one of my arguments whenever people talk about, well, you voted for this and you voted for that, talking about just the budget, right? And we have the ways and means to go through and to vet all of this stuff. And, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that there's not someone getting favoritism for certain projects here and there, but ultimately our job as reps becomes ensuring that our taxpayers, we each represent 42,000, ensuring that our taxpayers get their return on their investment back or get their money back.
Right.
And if I can't repeal the taxes, I want to ensure that they're getting their funds back.
And in, sort of in that spirit, we have a lot of needs here in York County, whether it's improving roads, infrastructure.
Last year it was blue granite.
Right.
I mean, we had to York County had to purchase that, and I was on council whenever we were going through that process.
Yeah. And that was 20 or 30 million from the state?
Well, it was 20, I think it was 20 million. 20 million, because you had, Allison Love and Joel Hamilton really pushing, because Allison represents that District 2, and they were struggling with blue granite on getting condemnation. And every time that it took longer, it cost more and more and more. Now, I knew the numbers that they gave us.
That sounds like a DOT project.
Yeah. Now, I knew that the numbers they gave us on repair weren't quite right. And that was just from talking with people I know within water and sewer, and them saying these numbers are off. But whenever they got it, what happens is the people who are on the blue granite water system with us condemning it, they are the ones responsible for this. Well, you're talking about a huge increase. And blue granite was set up so River Hills could be built to begin with, because it wanted to be like Hilton Head. But that area would not exist.
Did you know this? River
that.
Hills is a sister community to Sea Pines?
Yeah. That's what it was built for.
Yeah.
Good morning.
All right. Back. Last segment. What you want to talk about, Guffey? Hey, you know what? Let's big thank you to the American Cancer Society.
Yeah.
We got to see them on, what was that, Wednesday morning?
That was Thursday morning. No, that was Wednesday morning.
Got to see some folks from MUSC.
Suits and sneakers.
Yep. I forgot my sneakers.
I wore some bright red ones, so I want to hear anybody trying to use pictures of me wearing tennis shoes in the house and trying to make it say I had
lack of decorum. That's right.
Look at this redneck.
The Fetterman of York County. But yeah, it was good to see folks right here in Rock Hill and York County, and also saw the MUSC folks. And I've been through a case of melanoma, so definitely want to support the efforts of prevention.
Yes,
just getting out there, getting a regular checkup. The colorectal cancer thing, prevention. And I'm guilty of it. Guys, go get checked. It's not comfortable, would you say?
I've been getting checked since I was 12, so I'm just kidding. For anybody that can see his face whenever I said that.
I was like, what?
My doctor demands.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
But that could have went off in a ditch right there.
Complete joke, guys. Sorry, it was just to get a reaction out of Heath.
Yep. But yeah, it was in the State House we have a lot of breakfasts, and
they do that because you can't have any one group trying to persuade a set of legislators or attorneys,
especially in a partisan fashion.
Right. So this opens up to all staff, so legislative aides, staff of the building, everyone from every party. They just open it up for 2 hours, and if you work in the
breakfast,
block
coffee,
building, then
everybody's
you get to
welcome.
come in and get breakfast, coffee, and if they set up, if they're a statewide organization, they'll have York County, Lancaster County.
Yeah.
And they want the representatives to come over there, because then they're bragging about all of the good that they're doing.
Yeah, that's right.
And it allows us to understand what the purpose is of their programs.
Yep. And MUSC, I got a chance to go down there last year, meet Dr. Du Bois and a great team of folks. And what a wonderful, you should get down there, facility.
Oh,
that Hollings Cancer Institute.
Complete opposite with the bio, SC bio.
Oh, no.
I sat down and they talked about how, they led the COVID vaccine and DNA and about, and I was just, as I'm listening to these stats.
Okay, hold on. Let's pause for a second.
Yeah, sorry.
So, no. We're talking about two different things.
Okay.
We had the American Cancer one morning. SC Bio was the next morning.
Yes.
Yep, that's right. So, but I'm just telling you, you need to get down to Charleston. Or next time you're down in Charleston, call up the Hollings Cancer.
Get down there and take a look.
Yeah. Just what they're doing. I mean, they're really doing a lot of cutting edge cancer research, and hopefully.
And I think that they are using the bio as well.
Yeah.
And there is proven facts with using the genetic markers, creating medicines that are specific for an individual has tremendous success.
Yeah. Yep. So, well, man, we've summed up. I mean, we've talked about everything that we got going on this past week.
Depends on if you want to move on to the next topic or not.
Do you want to talk about the primary coming up?
Yeah, we can talk about the primary.
Yeah. So, a little background. I'm supporting Nikki Haley from the outset. Yep. You originally were supporting Ron D.
DeSantis.
Yep, Ron DeSantis, and both. That was a close 1-2 for me. I just thought, man, Haley's resume is pretty impressive. I thought that her having the legislative experience, the executive experience as governor, and then moving on to UN ambassador really just rounded out that foreign policy resume. Well, that would make her a good president.
Yeah, and I think that there's two different
but Ronnie D's doing a great job. He is America's best governor. What he did in Florida, especially during the COVID crisis.
Right.
And, man, he caught so much incoming fire.
And he stood strong.
That's right.
And weathered the storm.
So those two were 1-2 for me.
Now they're saying that he's right, and all the stats are showing it.
Yeah. And so, now going through Iowa, going through New Hampshire, it's down to former President Trump and Nikki Haley.
Yeah. And I supported Ron DeSantis at first because of his track record. Not just that. He's, he would have been the first candidate that actually served during an active wartime.
In a while, right.
Yeah, in a long time.
I think
and to me, to talk character, anybody that graduates Harvard and Yale and then says, forget it, I'm going to go join the military to serve my country in whichever capacity they can, that's the type of patriotism that we don't currently have.
Yeah, I literally think if Ronnie D had become president, he would have been the first president since George H.W. Bush.
Right. And now
to have served in the military.
And
that's wild, man, because
that
used to be like essential to someone serving as president.
Yeah.
Used
to be, because it showed that patriotism, and I don't think it's a bad standard. But I think that you've got to show that anyone that can show that they're willing to die for their country, you shouldn't be able to question their patriotism.
Yep.
And my other reason was cyber is my big issue.
Mm-hmm.
The average age of America is 39, and I was really pushing.
We didn't want two 80-year-olds.
Yeah, I was really pushing to have a newer generation, and someone that's 80. It's not that I don't think that you're qualified or that you lack mental capacity or anything like that. It's not an ageist thing. It's the fact that you were 50 years old whenever the internet come out. And I think that is one of our biggest problems coming up. It's hard.
It's
we
not
all
only
have to help our
relating,
grandparents computer.
It's not just a relatability factor. It's understanding some of the challenges that our generation's going through now.
And our generation is
then also average. Our kid. Right. So we'll see what happens,
I flew out to Dallas, and Ron DeSantis was still in. I landed in Dallas. As soon as I got phone service,
he was out.
He's out. So I'm getting, text messages and phone calls from the campaign, getting text messages and phone calls from Trump's team. And my initial response was, I'm not joining Team Trump. Like, I hadn't seen anything that DeSantis had done or had said.
Yeah.
Well,
and also
the text messages and voicemails.
I mean, literally, DeSantis had just left the race, so being able to flip that fast probably was challenging, especially
it's
the way
tough.
The way Trump attacked DeSantis, well, and now Haley as well. I guess we should get used to it at this point.
I get frustrated with some of the language from Trump, but I do think he was a good president.
Absolutely.
And it's not even so much Trump. It's the people. Just like last night at the Republican meeting, Nikki Haley's person is talking, and they go to ask a question, and a guy says, "What's her real name?" And by the time before the girl can answer, he's like, "That's what I thought," and just kind of sits back down. And it's that rhetoric that drives me crazy. I got up and walked out after that question because I can't take that.
You get some passionate supporters, but when it's coming from the candidate,
I understand. But I think he was a great president.
I thought
I struggled, so I ended up endorsing him.
I thought the policy environment during his presidency, man, grade A.
I felt like if you wanted to bring the country together more and get the independence, Nikki's the better vote.
Yeah.
But DeSantis was the most conservative, and truthfully, DeSantis is a guy that I would follow into battle. I've seen his heart. I've seen the way that he handles things.
Yeah.
And for him, after being attacked so much by Donald Trump, to come in and say, "I'm going to support Donald Trump," that's
I thought the DeSantis campaign asked important questions that really never even got covered. I think Nikki Haley is asking similar questions.
She brought up the digital stuff. I think she was wrong in the way she did it, but she was right in the intent.
And you and I have talked about this. Nikki Haley has a track record of being a fiscal conservative.
She's the one who essentially took on the swamp.
Like
everyone wants to talk about that, but she was the one. She was the first minority female governor.
Yep.
And she come in and took on the swamp. Now, do I agree with everything that she's done? No. I still don't like the fact, and I think the thing that bothers me the most is the money. Like, how do you leave the UN broke and now you're worth all this money?
Right.
And that raises questions. Not saying that anything was unethical.
Yeah, no.
But the same thing would be said about you and I. I mean, I'm broke right now. If I left the house and all of a sudden I'm a multimillionaire, and everyone's going to be like, what's he doing?
Well, I think folks know you from being a legislator.
Yeah.
And they may like your style.
That's the only hope I got.
But
you have to like my aggressiveness.
Yeah.
Or at least respect.
Well, and so I think in talking to voters around our state, I think Nikki Haley has a compelling argument to say, wait a minute, how is a New York Democrat who supported the Clintons for 15 or 20 years now going to be a litmus test for a South Carolina conservative? And that, I'm sorry, ring that bell, because that is the essential question. How on earth did that happen? One. And two, I mean, man, I just think in tough times you see the measure of someone's character.
Yeah.
When she was governor, she ran into that tragedy down in Charleston.
Yeah.
And, for a long time, you and I, being South Carolina natives, we grew up with a Confederate flag flying on the State House dome. I was in college when they moved it to the out front on the Gervais Street side of the State House. And as governor, in a challenging time, and you got to understand, folks, if you're not from South Carolina, that Confederate flag issue cost David Beasley his reelection.
Right.
That and video poker. For all those folks who are born and raised and been here in South Carolina for all their life, they know. And Jim Hodges probably would admit it today. Video poker and that Confederate flag issue won Hodges the election.
Well, I would say it was definitely the less popular opinion to remove the flag.
Yep.
And That caused a lot of enemies on Haley.
And
whenever Clymer ran for Senate and Haley came to speak, you had a guy show up marching in front of her house, toting a Confederate flag.
Right.
Or in front of Clymer's house.
Yeah. And so when the going gets tough, you see the mettle. You see the character of the nominee or the candidate. And Nikki Haley, through it all, made the right decision, right?
Yeah.
So throw that out. I throw that question out to the Trump team. When the going got tough, what did he do? When COVID hit, what did he do?
He gave an award to Fauci. He got the vaccine out quick.
Yep.
It's not just that, though. This is a president that did not enter any conflicts. And the problem becomes, and I've never seen anyone like him to where it doesn't matter what he says. He has people's support, and we can sit here and say how someone can bring people from the middle. I'm convinced that 20-30% of these Trump supporters now were not Republicans before Trump entered the race.
Yeah.
And that's the reason they sit there and call true conservatives rhinos all the time.
Well,
and
so
it's that rhetoric. The rhetoric bothers me. But I do think he was a good president. So it becomes a push for me on that.
Yeah.
And ultimately that's the reason that with DeSantis backing him,
I know
after being attacked, it was like, okay, this is a guy I've said
and we'll never know.
Then I'll follow him.
Yeah, and we'll never know. I wonder, just the personal stuff that goes on with the campaign. But again, this thing with Nikki Haley. Being a fiscal conservative, when the going gets tough, she's still able to make the right decision, even though it may be unpopular. Really, just re-solidified my support for her, and I'm looking forward to her to getting back to the home state. And we got several weeks to see what's going to happen.
Right.
I
don't like the fact of people saying that she should just drop out. Things.
That article about the RNC was going to go ahead and call it or whatever, and I don't know what's the delegate count right now. Does anybody know? It's something like 30-something.
Newt Gingrich beat Trump in 2016 in South Carolina. So and Trump didn't stand a chance at that time.
Yeah, right.
So for people to feel like they have to
go
drop
off,
out, it's ridiculous.
If you go off some early states, Scott Walker would have been president.
Right.
In 2016. But so there's
that?
Exactly. No. Scott Walker, former.
I was kidding.
I know. Well, for the two listeners out there, I wanted to.
Okay.
But, yeah, so we got a few weeks. Trump's got several court dates, and I'm sure the campaigns are going to be busy crisscrossing this state, which is awesome.
I am convinced that all of these court cases has made people come out even more in support of Trump because of how ridiculous that many of them are.
Go back and look at the numbers.
Yeah. And
that literally, that indictment.
I think the Democrats are intentionally doing it because Trump statistically has a less chance of beating, while he does beat Biden in the general election,
right.
Statistically, he does not beat any other Democrat. And I'm still convinced that
they're going to do the old switcheroo.
As soon as Trump wins,
then
they're going to put in someone like
the Democratic Party's all of a sudden going to realize, hey, this guy's health is failing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Like they can't tell it right now.
Well, man, I tell you, there's been a few videos of him speaking at a brewery.
I mean,
and it was
if he was my
gibberish.
grandfather, I'd be put in jail for elderly neglect.
Yeah,
right.
This
is a problem.
But, yeah, so we'll see what happens. There's going to be a lot of attention here to our state, and looking forward to hearing from the campaigns and, man, just getting out to the voters and doing that retail politicking. So,
yeah.
Well, man, another one in the books.
I'm happy.
I know, man.
I didn't get all mad this time.
Yeah, and you're a little lit up.
I've got light. My hat might be throwing it off.
got a little powder.
Yeah. As long as my tattoos aren't glaring.
Yeah, that's right. Well, again, I want to say a thank you to Comer Distributing for providing the OMB Dunkel Dark Lager. Man, I enjoyed it. It was pretty good.
And without, the idea of pints and politics was actually brought up by Representative Sessions, and he could have easily just did a podcast called Sessions with Sessions. But anyway, as we got this without Chip and Comer, deciding to sponsor to pay for production. Now, granted, myself and Heath, for those who want to just go against us and think that we're making money off this. We do not receive a dime, and the sponsorship just simply pays for the production of it.
Yeah, and also, for the podcast studio as well.
Yeah.
So want to give them a shout out. I tell you, this has been a great little studio here. So if
we got some music background today.
Yeah, that's right. Well, with Taylor Swift possibly suing the AI folks for using her name, image, and likeness, I'm telling you, she's got to be able to get some court victories. And
I don't care. I don't care
if college athletes can get name, image, and likeness. I'm sure Taylor Swift's going to be able to get some when. For those of y'all who don't know, just Twitter and social media, man, just blew up with a lot of AI-generated images of Taylor Swift that were for folks who were above the age of 18. And Guffey and I were talking about that prior to the show.
I just want to see all these kids that have been attacked and these parents that have lost kids get, some satisfaction that these companies are making the change and that we are actually doing what is best for people and not as worried about profits.
Yeah.
And Meta is not the example company right
now. No. Well, we'll stay tuned to see what happens there. We will keep everyone abreast on the Maury Povich bill.
Yes. Has not come up. Neither has the rules or any of that other stuff.
Nope. So in the House next week, we got some do you have any committee meetings? Do you know?
I don't know.
We got full
came in last night.
Yeah, we got full committee on 3M. We're dealing with some veteran bills. I think they're going to be unanimous.
I do have committee. We've got two judicial reform committees I know of for sure.
Okay.
Next week.
Yep, and I'm sure we're going to be taking up some of these social media bills, if not next week, the following week. Right. So.
And we'll be able to talk about about the judicial reform.
Yep, and
next week.
We have failed to mention we still are dealing with judicial elections.
Yes.
So that is a dynamic environment.
We haven't voted on anyone yet.
No,
but these people start dropping out, and then you only have one or two left in each one.
And, over these next few weeks, we'll get to know some of those candidates who are still standing. And, we'll give you an update as that continues. So thanks for listening. Thanks to our sponsors, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Wake up, Mr. West, Mr. West, Mr. Fresh, Mr.